We'll give Shara a second to get in and settled.
Your siren?
Yeah. So while she's doing that, thank you for everyone for taking a little field trip today. Our purpose of today is we're going to do a rough demonstration of a level 2 inspection of what a driver would encounter at a roadside. If they're pulled in at a scale or if they're pulled over and they're going to go through a level 2 inspection. Depending on the inspector, they may or may not open the hood just to take a quick look around, see if they find anything. If they do, then they'll kick it up a notch and probably a level 1. Otherwise, if they don't find anything, hood will go closed, then they'll continue around the vehicle. So we'll be checking under the hood just to catch anything under there. And then we're going to work around the vehicle anti-clockwise. And as we get around, then I'll finish up with Shara as the driver. And I'll tell you what we're looking for as we're going around. That way you kind of get an idea of what inspectors are looking for. So we'll get started here. And we did make sure that there was room that you can walk around the whole truck safely. Good afternoon, driver.
Hi.
Have your seatbelt on there, it looks like.
I do.
Good. I'm going to have you stay in the vehicle. Your hood is open. I'm going to take a quick look under the hood, see if I find anything. Then I'll shut it, and then we're going to go through the light test in the front of the vehicle. As I walk around, we'll continue checking lights, so please stay in the vehicle.
Okay.
And I will give you instructions as I need you to function through the lights.
Okay.
Do you have any questions before we get started?
I do.
All right, thank you. Quick check under the hood, and I will be back with you in a minute. So under here, we're checking steering components, the steering shaft, power steering pump or the sector. This coming down is the pitman arm, making sure that all the hardware is there, that the cotter pins are in the castle bolts. This is the drag link, making sure we don't have movement in the drag link, and that it goes into the steering knuckle. And the steering knuckle has cotter pin also in the castle nut, so we're checking to make sure all of that hardware is there. I'm checking brake lining and condition of the drum to make sure that there's proper brake lining thickness. If it is a 2-piece pad, it's a minimum of 1/4 inch. And by looking at the pad, you will see that there's either an offset or a V. At the bottom of that V, or if that offset is gone, that means it's at the 1/4 inch and needs to be replaced. We're also checking for any cracks, any chips, or any part of it breaking off or in danger of becoming lodged in the brake drum. Just visually, check fluids I can see visually. I'm not going to check oil. Checking suspension parts, making sure that the shock is present, that it's not leaking, that it's properly mounted and secure, and that the bushings are in the top and bottom where the bolts are. Checking the springs for any shiny metal, broken hardware like the U-bolts, missing nuts on the bottom, or to see if it has shifted or cracked. Checking the frame for any cracks, or if there are any welds, that they are not broken. Checking the engine for any oil leaks. You can have a little bit of wet, or as they call it, weeping. If you have a little weeping around here, that's okay, but if it reaches the ground, then it's a violation. So I'm checking for any oil leaking, any wires or hoses that are chafed, bubbled, or that they are cut so that they cannot wear through. I'll go to the other side. Over here, we're checking the same thing. The brake chambers, part of the brake system, the drums, the linings, the frame, there's springs and shocks, but we're also checking the exhaust, making sure that there's no soot coming out, showing that there's an exhaust leak. And up here where the manifold is, making sure that there's no exhaust leak at the manifold. Here we're also going to check the alternator. We're going to check the belts, make sure that it's not frayed, glazed, and that it's riding in the proper position, that it's not in danger of coming off. You also want to check your wiring going to it to make sure that it's charging properly. If your wire is damaged, loose, or excessively corroded, it's not going to charge properly. So you're checking the condition of that, checking the condition of the boots, making sure everything is present, And over here would be checking your washer fluid. You have to have washer fluid in the reservoir. It's a 1-point violation if you do not, if it's empty. And then just visually checking the coolant. After checking these items, we will shut the hood. Make sure to close the straps. Okay, driver, we are going to go through the light test. If you would please turn on your headlights and your marker lights.
Okay.
I will call out the command as which one I want you to test. In the front, I'm checking the license plate to make sure it's readable and that it has the proper registration year sticker on it. All right, low beams, driver. High beams. Thank you. 4 ways. Left turn signal. Right turn signal. All right, thank you. Coming down the side, just visually check the tire, make sure there's at least 4/32 tread on it, that there's no cuts, abrasions, or bulges, and that we don't see any rust marks coming from the lug nuts. Continuing down the side, make sure that their steps are secure, that they're not going to come off while driving. These are secured. They are secured with these 2 straps, this one and then there's one over there. Driver, I'm going to open your door to make sure it operates correctly. Open the door to make sure it operates correctly. We already saw that the window went down. The window on both sides has to be able to function up and down, and the door has to be able to close and stay closed properly. Driver, do you have the key for your side box?
Yes, I do.
May I have it? I'm going to check your fire extinguisher and your emergency equipment on the side. Here is your key, driver. Thank you. Here I'm checking for the fire extinguisher, which is mounted right here, that it is secured properly, that it is in the green zone, and that they can readily access it. I'm also going to check for their triangles, which is right here. Make sure that they're not obstructed, and there must be 3 red triangles in there. If there's not 3, that's considered not having the triangles. And then I would also ask the driver where their spare fuses are, which I will do when we come back at the end, so I can continue going down the side of the vehicle. Coming down the side, just visually checking the fuel tank, that there's a proper cap, that there's no leaks, and that the straps are not broken, and that the rubber or the material in between is not coming out. If that material down here is not present or it's coming out, it can wear in through the tank and create a leak. As I'm coming down the back of the cab, I'm checking the conspicuity on the back of the sleeper. On the sleeper, it must be white, no white and red. It has to be white only, and a minimum of 12 inches long on both sides. I'm checking the condition of the airbags and the shocks for the cab, that they aren't leaking, that they aren't broken, and that they're properly mounted and secured. As we come through, I'm checking the air lines to see if there's any chafing, that they're not rubbing on anything, that there's no cuts, abrasions, or bulges. These springs are required by law, minimum of 2 inches long. And what the spring does is prevents when you grab the line like that and pull up or down, you can kink the inside line and reduce the airflow into here. That's why these springs have to be present, to prevent that. Check to make sure that there is no air leaks in the connection between the truck and the trailer. If there is, I would have the driver release the air to the trailer and pull them apart and check them. Check the deck plate to make sure that it is secured. Check to make sure their quarter fenders are secured and that they're not going to come off. As I'm coming down, I would check the tread depth on the drive tires, minimum of 2/32 measured in each major tire groove, and check the lug nuts to make sure that there's no rust markings indicating a loose lug nut. Here we're going to check the 5th wheel to check that all the mounting bolts are there, and we can see that one is missing there. You are allowed to miss 1 bolt. 1 bolt is a violation, 2 is considered out of service. So we will address that one. Check to make sure that the handle is pushed in and that the nut on the front, that is for adjustment, make sure that is up against the fifth wheel. If it is sticking out, that's an indication that that fifth wheel jaw is not locked properly. As you're coming down, you're going to inspect the bags and the suspension. Again, suspension, we're checking for any cracks, brakes, missing components, missing hardware. And if you see shiny metal and it's not a new part, that means there's something rubbing on it, so you need to check its operation. Checking airbags, making sure that they're properly mounted and secured, that they're not weather checked to the point where you can start seeing the ply underneath, or that they're leaking. Once we come to the back of the tractor, this is where you will climb underneath with a flashlight and look up into the jaws where the fifth wheel is to make sure that you see the locking mechanism come together or across, depending on the type of fifth wheel that it is. This is the only way to properly check that a trailer is hooked up correctly, is by climbing under here and making those locking jaws are secured properly. While I'm here, I'm also going to check the shocks to make sure that they're not leaking, that they're properly mounted and secured, and that the bushings are here. And then I will check the condition of the rear brakes while I'm under there also to make sure, checking the linings and the drums condition while I'm here. I'll also check the rear mud flaps. So the mud flaps have to be at least 9, or cannot be more than 9 inches off of road height when the vehicle's at ride height. So we are exactly at 9 inches. So this is within regulation to be 9 inches within the road height. If you lose a flap, or if a tire blows out and it rips it or tears it, you got to get out and measure it, because if it's more than 9 inches from the road height, it has to be replaced. Driver, brake lights. All right, left turn, right turn, 4 ways, reverse light. If you need to start the vehicle, go ahead. Is it in reverse? Turn the vehicle off. Thank you. As we're coming down, make sure that it has a current inspection sticker. We are in the state of Minnesota, so it has to be a Minnesota decal, not a federal. This is a Minnesota licensed vehicle, the trailer, so it has to have a Minnesota decal on it in the state of Minnesota. Checking the flaps and the body condition of the trailer, make sure nothing is broken. Checking the landing gear, making sure all of the hardware is present and that the landing gear handle is secured. While we're here, this is where the documentation will be. For documentation, we're checking that there's a current DOT inspection and that there's a cab card or registration document in there showing the ownership of the trailer. This was checked and it does have current. Thank you to the driver that put them in there this morning. Continuing down, you got to have at least 50% of conspicuity tape, or in the regulation, it's retro reflective sheeting. I call it conspiracy tape. Thank you, 3M. So as we're coming down, we'll check the turn signals. Put your left turn signal on, driver. Okay, so we're just going to leave that on while we come to the back to check. Turn signal's working, making sure that there is nothing on the body that is broken, hanging, or in danger of coming off. With this trailer being an air ride, on a lot of trailers there are dump valves. Make sure that the driver does not have it in the dump position when they're going down the road. When it's in the dump position, you will see the trailer go down. It's letting all the air out of the airbag. This is considered suspension air loss. That, depending on the trailer, can and will affect your brakes. So it does not have the same braking efficiency as it does when it's fully aired up. So if they're driving around with the suspension dumped on the trailer, they don't have as efficient brakes. So they need to make sure that it is in the ride position at all times when they're going down the road. Here, I'm just going to step under And I'm going to check the brake chambers, the brake lining thickness. If it is rotors, I'll see if there's any damage to the rotors. And if possible, if I can see the brake pads, the thickness. Some of them you can, some of them you can't. Those will be inspected. Checking the suspension, the shocks. Again, make sure properly mounted and secured, that they're not leaking. I'm also going to be checking any air hoses for any chafing, or if the air lines are damaged in any way. Chafing is one violation. If it exposes the second layer, the braiding of the hose, or reduces the diameter of the hose in any way, that would turn it to an out of service violation. So if you see air lines chafing, catch it early. You can cover them so it no longer chafes, but if it exposes that second layer of the braiding, it has to be replaced. That's not a service. Same thing with electrical wires and airlines. If you see them chafing like the plastic ones, make sure you get them replaced and then cover them so that they can't chafe again. Coming to the back here, I'm checking the tires. Again, making sure that we have proper tread depth. Proper inflation is another big one. DOT goes off of the sidewall pressures. So if a tire is 120 PSI, we consider it flat at 50% of the sidewall pressure or greater air loss is considered flat. So at 120 PSI, 60 PSI or less, this tire is flat. When you look at the weight rating, it says this amount of weight at this PSI. The weight rating of the tire goes down in conjunction with the air pressure. So if this was a 6,000 pound rated tire at 50 PSI or 50% of sidewall, it's only going to be a 3,000 pound tire. So the driver can get an additional violation for an overloaded tire in addition to the flat tire. So you have to be careful and watch the air pressures because you don't want to end up with more violations than what you need. Well, you don't want any. So, but just be aware you can get multiple off of one problem with a low tire. Again, checking the hubs. I will check these airlines. These are part of the auto inflate. This is considered an airline, so if it chafes on anything, then that's a violation. You have to watch when the person put them on here. If you have your tires serviced or replaced, check to make sure that they didn't put them on and that they're rubbing on the inside of the rim on that hole. If it is, eventually it's going to wear through and then you've got an air leak. Same thing, that's going to be a violation for chafing air hose, and then eventually it's going to be an out of service because you're leaking air. Coming to the back here, we're going to check the ABS light. The ABS light is required to be marked ABS in 1-inch letters. So if the light is not marked ABS and the trailer is not marked ABS somewhere, always keep a Sharpie with you because you can write ABS in 1-inch letters and meet the regulation. Driver, cycle your key. So we can hear that it was cycled. The light did not come on. This would be a violation. The light has to come on, blink a few times, go through its cycle, and then shut off. If it does not come on, that's a violation, or if it comes on and will not go out, that is another violation. Driver, is the light on your dash illuminated for ABS? So the driver already knows they got a problem with their ABS because the truck tells them. All the newer trucks have a truck and trailer ABS indicator light on their dash. So they need to pay attention to that light. So we are in the back here. 4 ways, driver. Left turn signal. Right turn signal. Brake lights. All right, make sure that everything's functioning here. 3 marker lights up on the trailer are functioning. Up on the corners, you see the white on the corners there. Depending on the type of trailer, where it'll be located. If it's a van, it'll be all the way to the outside and top. On the tanks, it just kind of looks like a little alligator mouth there on the top. On these, it puts them at the very top by the ladder. Must be at least 12 inches long and white only on the trailer, as high and out as practical for the corners of the trailer. Checking the license plate. Again, make sure the light works and that it's legible. Conspicuity tape or retroreflective sheeting is required to be across the 100% of the whole rear of the trailer. If they have like a van has another ICC bumper down there, then it has to be on the ICC bumper and up here. This is not an ICC bumper. ICC bumpers are required on certain vehicles. This is what's called a wheel back vehicle. So it is not required to have an ICC bumper because the wheels are within 12 inches of the rear of the trailer. So you're going to hit the axle first. You're not going to be able to go underneath. So check to make sure that this is secured, that it's not dragging, and that there's no product leaking from it. Checking the mud flaps, again for 9 inches at ride height off of the ground. These are working lights. So to know whether a light's required to work or not, the regulation has a chart in it that'll tell you what all lights are required, what the color are, the number of them, and the position that's required. If you don't like to read a lot, like me, you can look at the pictures. There's a little key in there. So you look at the picture, look up the number, and it will tell you that way what light is required, the color, the number, and the direction. Going down the road, you're only allowed to have 3 color lights: clear, red, and amber. If you want another color, it cannot be illuminated while going down the road. So if you want to sit in a parking lot somewhere, you can look like a Christmas tree or a rainbow. Going down the road, only 3 colors are allowed on a commercial motor vehicle. Checking securement of the tubes, making sure that nothing is broken, damaged. At the rear of the trailer here, we're going to check to make sure that the proper red reflectors are on the corners of the trailer. You are required to be able to see this back marker light. So if you have one that's sunken in and you're not able to see it, you need to get one that comes out so you can see it properly. With LED lights, LEDs are really nice. The regulation on that is 50% or more of the diodes burned out. That light is considered not working. LEDs are nice because you can have a couple out and still have a functioning light, whereas incandescent, once the one bulb goes out, it's completely out and it's an immediate violation. So 50% of the diodes burned out will put that service or that light as not working. We're checking the same thing coming down this side of the vehicle. We're checking the tread depth on the tires, the condition, the lug nuts, the suspension on here. Make sure toolboxes are secured, that the door is closed, not coming down. Just checking any parts on here. Put your right signal on, driver. Okay. So we're good. Checking this side of the landing gear, making sure all of the mounting hardware is here, that it's not broke, cracked, or any parts missing. And drivers, they should always make sure that they're lubing the landing gear to make sure it's easier on themselves to get it up and down. Fenders, checking for the conspicuity tape going down the side of the vehicle. This is more than what's regulated because you're only required to 50%. On the back of the mud flaps, you're checking to make sure that conspicuity tape is there. Checking the shocks, the suspension, the airbags, everything on this side of the vehicle. Tread depth on the tires, lug nuts. Coming back down here, that the step is secure so that it will not come off and that the driver has to use it, that it is not going to go anywhere. Check to make sure that everything is secured properly that's on the trailer. Cargo cannot be secured with a bungee cord. It's required to be a strap. DOT says there's no weight rating on a bungee. Anything that secures a load on a trailer or any item on a trailer has to have a load rating. So it has to be a strap. If you have smaller things to secure, buy the 1-inch strap with like a 500-pound rating or a 1,000-pound rating, and you may cut them down to the length you need to use them. So in this, that hose right there, it is together up here, but that is not secured. So that would need to be secured with a strap. As we're coming down, checking the fuel tank, make sure that they have the proper credentials, fuel tax and stickers. If there's anything over here that we need to check, there's nothing in here. This is just simply the driver's maintenance supplies. Checking the fuel tank on the side for any leaks, that the straps are there. Checking the stairs, make sure it's secured. This is a toolbox here. Driver, is this door unlocked?
Yes.
Thank you. Check to make sure that the